Volker, thank you so much for joining the podcast. Thank you. It's beautiful day behind you. I can see that. So, thanks for joining. The person I have here today is Volker Hildebrand, and Volker comes in with a ton of experience from CRM, B2B marketplaces, and across SAP, and he is a board member at Covio, and he has also been recently head of product marketing at SugarCRM. Volker, thank you so much for making the time. And it would be great to start with a little bit of your background and your experience within the support realm. And so the audience will be very intrigued about what they are going to hear from you.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. And Kay, thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited about this conversation. I've been working with customer in the customer support and customer experience area for a very long time. And even in my early days when I was more on the e-commerce side, e-commerce basically is self-service, right? If you think about it, yes, it's about selling, but I've always had that notion that customer service in general, and customer experience in particular is not limited to after the sale, right? Process, but even during and before. And so I think that's a really important aspect, and that's always how I looked at customer service in general. The other thing I think is important, and I've led the customer service cloud solution portfolio at SAP for quite some time, and we were really looking at self-service, at call center, at field service, when you send out field service technicians to do repairs. And you always need that holistic approach. But the most important thing when it comes to customer service is you always need to look at it from a customer, the end customer perspective, right? What are their expectations? And that's all that matters with regards to whether or not they have a good or bad customer experience, right?
Very true. That's one of the reasons why I always say, hey, I don't like to talk about deflections. I only talk about resolutions, because deflection is from the business perspective that we are deflecting the ticket, whereas customer is always just looking for a resolution, right? So
that's right. Absolutely. Yeah. I really like, I forgot his name, but there was, I think it was in the late 80s, the CEO back then of Scandinavian Airlines, he wrote a book afterwards, which was called Moments of Truth, and I really like that concept, because every customer interaction and customer service related interactions in particular are indeed moments of truth that can make or break a relationship, right? And so it really puts your organization to the test. How quickly can you respond, and how fast can you solve the problem, right? Or answer the question if it's just a simple question, and actually bring the resolution as you said. And the other aspect is how easy can you make it for the customer, right? To get a hold of you, for example. Nobody wants to be put on hold. Yeah. Contact centers forever. We've all experienced that. So I think those two factors are key from a customer perspective. It's speed and it's convenience. Mm-hmm. And then the third aspect is reliability. Is the solution that I provide, is that the right solution, right? For the customer. not, and again, it's the customer who determines whether his problem is solved or not. Many times organizations think they may have solved the problem, but reality is they have not, right?
That's right. From a customer's perspective, it doesn't matter whether they are talking to customer success or technical support or contact center L1, L4. They just want their issue to be resolved. And if there are abilities that they can resolve it themselves, that's great. If they are talking to L1, L4 agents, and if they can't help, so, and to your point, a lot of times we keep bouncing things around, and because everything is based on tickets. And the ticket is bouncing around, and from a customer perspective, they don't even care that there is a ticket or not. They just care that their problem is resolved. So one of the things we've been tolling on, Volker, is this concept of no tickets. And when we had that discussion recently with a CCO, he came across and he said, hey, I'm not thinking about a ticketing solution at all. So why not boldly go out and say no support, right? So what does no ticket or no support mean to you, Volker?
Yeah, so let's start with no ticket. I actually like that concept, because going back to what I said earlier, if you look at it from a customer perspective, again, they have a question, they have a problem, they have an issue, whether it's with an order or with a product, or they simply want to know something. Like I said, maybe even before they buy, they just have a question, and they're not interested in tickets. They don't want somebody, oh, let me create a ticket, and it's first of all, it takes time away, right? So the speed factor. How quickly can you respond? Oh, let me do this. Let me create the ticket. And then also what happens many times is one person is creating the ticket and somebody else then needs to work on it.
Yeah.
And so this is an unnecessary kind of extension and complication of the process. If you want to make it fast and easy for a customer, you want to solve his problem, answer his question right away, and then there's no need for a ticket, right? It's only at a last resort, if it is more complex, if you need at least an identification number for a customer problem, and somebody else needs to follow up. That's fine, but the concept of tickets itself. The other thing that I've noticed, and I've seen a lot of customer service and support solutions from a software perspective, and almost all of them they're centered around the ticket or the
Yes.
case. Sometimes it's called case or case management, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're instead of focusing on the customer. And these moments of truth. And helping customers right there and solving the problem. And I think simply taking that perspective changes the entire mindset of a customer service or customer support organization. In terms of how they engage and interact with the customer, right? So if I look at it from that perspective, ticket management, case management, overrated and probably the wrong way to look at the real issue.
Yeah. So essentially at Ascendo, we talk about it as the moments of truth as interactions, right? So and give meaning and extract meaning to every interaction. That's what really needs to happen. And I think what you're saying is providing that support that's needed and the speed. You talked about speed and you talked about convenience and reliability. That speed, convenience, and reliability doesn't necessarily have to just be self-service alone. It can be even what an agent or a human is providing. It is essentially something that every person who's interacting with a customer, they're thinking about customer as a mindset and thinking about speed, convenience, and reliability.
Absolutely, and we've looked at. Where is it? I've actually I wrote a book many years ago, The Customer Experience Edge, and it actually talks about exactly those things: speed, convenience, reliability. Um, there's a fourth one that we identified, kind of the fourth pillar of customer experience, which is relevance.
Mhm.
So, for example, if a customer is looking for information or a recommendation, it needs to be relevant, and many times it needs to be personalized, right? If it's irrelevant information, it's especially a problem in marketing and e-commerce when we're getting all these emails with recommended products, and well, we don't even care about. Sometimes we bought a product and then we get all the pop-up ads, right? recommending the same product. That's pretty stupid if you think about it. But that's the fourth pillar that we identified for what matters when it comes to customer experience. And the interesting thing really is that we were looking across many different industries, and it always comes down to those four pillars, right? Whether it's B2B or B2C, nobody wants to waste their time. Nobody wants to, talk about the convenience aspect, go through multiple hoops in order to get something done. Just solve the problem, or even in more complex situations. Think about in situations where a service technician actually needs to go on site to maybe repair something. And many years ago, I met the CEO of a Swiss company called Core Systems, and we later acquired them at SAP. And their idea was, customers don't want to wait for the cable guy. So how can we rethink this whole situation that somebody's Wi-Fi router or TV box isn't working anymore and needs to be swapped out? If you call, don't want to name names, but if you call your cable provider today, right, you're lucky if they send someone in 2 days, and then you get a time window from like 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. and you need to stay home all the time. And so they said this is the wrong approach, and they basically had the idea it should be more like Uber, right? You have an app and you just say, got a problem. And so they were leveraging AI and in order to provide kind of a field service on demand for a Swiss company called Swisscom. And with that entirely different approach and the help of AI, which they used for scheduling and routing and finding a service technician that's nearby, they were able, in 90% of the cases, to have a service technician in less than an hour from the time the customer basically requested the help.
Yeah, and
this is game changing, right? So I think the reason I'm using this example, it's very specific, but it shows that once you change your mindset and you go away from, customer calls, we need to create a ticket, and then we need to send it, and then we need to schedule, and then we need to do this, and that whole process takes like 2 days. That's just wrong. So let's just think about it differently, and then all of a sudden, this is a totally different customer experience. right?
Yeah, one of the
Oh,
you're exactly right. It's in the, we talked about routing, but it can the same thing that you talking can be extended now with AI, which is exactly what we are working at Ascendo with SAP. For example, once there is a customer question, you help customer get self-help. If that is not available before it gets a dispatch manager gets help, before even they dispatch. And if that also doesn't resolve the issue, they identify the best person, and to your point, it's Uber-like experience, best person, best information. But when they hit the door, they already know, here's what I'm going to do, this is how I'm going to do, this is the part I'm going to replace, and have the entire game plan ready to go. And that game plan is really what the customer wants. They don't want the ticket.
that's right. They don't care.
Okay.
And they also don't care who needs to get involved um, at the company they're dealing with, as long as this person can actually help solve the problem, right?
That's
I mean,
it.
how many times do what people call contact center, for example, and then they need to get transferred to somebody else and then transferred again. This is all stupid if you can identify immediately what's the customer issue. Is it a billing problem? Then it needs to go to a different person than if it's a problem with the product, or if it's a question about an order that has not been delivered on time. That might be a different person again that's dealing with that, and that can actually help with that. And AI in particular can actually extract that kind of information, whether it's verbal or whether it's in a chat or in an email, whatever the form is, right? Because one other thing that's an issue many times with that kind of thinking in tickets is filling out forms, right? Is many times part of it, because the ticket expects certain information in a certain format, and it needs to be entered in a way. And so either when it's self-service, you go online and you have these forms and you need to fill out this, what's the order number, what's this, what's your account number, and you need to know all these things and then describe your
Little tidbits, Volker. Sorry. In one of the customers we talked to, they had to pick a category and subcategory when they need to fill the form, and they have 3,000 categories. 3,000 categories. Yeah. It's humanly not possible.
Well, because that's the other thing, right? Then you have all these categories, and the next question, the real question, do you even need those categories, right? No, you don't. Not even for analytical purposes. You don't need that many. You can boil this down to, maybe 10 or 12. Maybe you want to go a little bit deeper if it's a product issue, because then you want to be able to analyze, right? If there's maybe a flaw in the product or a problem in the manufacturing process, right? But yeah, all these categorizations, and I think a lot of these ticket management or case management system, they invite the administrators of those tools to make it even more complex and add more complexity to the process, and what should be fairly simple and pretty straightforward all of a sudden becomes a monster. And this is a great example, right? They probably didn't sit down and came up with like 3,000 categories. That over time, they just added categories and subcategories. And then somebody said, oh, but I want to run this report, so I need those subcategories, and I need this. And again, nobody's thinking about what's the impact on the customer, right? Is there a positive impact on the customer? If there's no positive impact on the customer, don't do it. Right?
Yeah. So you know, it's amazing to hear from your experience that this is so important for the CCOs that say, hey, I'm not thinking about ticketing tool as the first thing. Why should they be thinking about this? Why should they be thinking about customer first? How do they change their mentality to think about no tickets?
Well, I think it's really this. I think they need to look at it from the customer experience perspective, and they also need to look at how a better customer experience leads to a better ROI in general, to more revenue, lower costs, and ultimately impacts the bottom line. I think that's probably the challenge, because if you have a ticket management system, there's a lot of things that you can now track and monitor, and then you can look at, how long does it take for a ticket to be completed, how long is it sitting between whatever step 2 and step 3, and you can look at completion rates, how many tickets can the customer service reps create per day, right? And if this goes up, that's good, right? It means they work harder. But it's all the wrong metrics. And so I think I know there's this saying, you can't manage what you can't measure. But I think many times, especially in customer service, it's the wrong metrics. It's the one that are kind of easier to measure and track and look at and report on. But it's not really the ones that are relevant for the customer, right? And so a lot of them are looking, how many tickets can we deal with per service rep? How many tickets, on an average day per rep, and then they can look at the cost, right? And customer support organizations, let's face it, they are always under pressure to keep costs at bay and potentially lower costs. That's also why they're thinking about ticket deflection and things like that, right? Because it's like, yeah, it's dollar signs in their eyes, right? Hey, this is a way to cut costs, right? And that's why I said early on, it's a shift in the mindset of how you look at customer service and really look at it through the eyes from customers. Having said that, ultimately, you need to be able to then kind of see what's the impact on cost and revenue, right? I think one of the challenges is many times consistently creating better customer experiences in customer service and support pays off in the longer run. It doesn't necessarily pay off, today or by the end of the week or on a quarterly basis. Maybe you can see a little bit of a trend quarter by quarter basis already, but it's not necessarily that immediate impact on the financials and the bottom line, right?
Actually, with the AI, Volker, one of the things we talk about in our customer service discussions with customer service heads is, okay, how many predictions does it take to solve an issue? So if you have 800 tickets, if it takes 800 predictions, then that means you're solving everything the first time.
That's right.
If it takes multiple hops, let's say it takes 7 hops from all the way to your contact center to your escalation team to resolve it, right? So that's 7 hops that a customer did not have to go through to get to it. So to some extent, AI actually gives that benefit right off the bat than any other traditional customer service applications do. Um,
I agree with that. Absolutely. Yeah. Um, and AI can also help show the financial impact if you embed it into the reporting as well, and you correlate kind of the predictions of AI and the correct predictions. You can start correlating that with tangible business outcomes, right? Whether it is costs or even revenue over a longer period of time, right? Things like customer lifetime value, for example, and you can basically throw all that information in there, and AI is figuring out which are the ones that are relevant.
Relevant, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting time, and it's so wonderful to hear from someone who has gone through multiple innovation cycles within customer service, Volker, and hear your perspective on this. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. I think we have to go into a next step deep dive in ROI and stuff like that another time, but appreciate the time we have taken today. Thanks, Volker.
All right. Thanks, Kate, for having me. Yeah, good conversation. Yeah, I can talk about this forever.
We both can. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye bye.